It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous, to always be prepared, to keep our family safe, to be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Schmidt. I'm the president and founder of the United States Concealed Carry Association, the USCCA, and welcome to tonight's special broadcast. The title is Freedom and Safety in the Face of the Coronavirus Threat. I'm excited to be here tonight. I've got a very special guest. COLION NOIR is a Second Amendment activist. He is a person that I'm sure you guys have seen all over the internet. He makes fantastic videos, but most importantly, he believes in the natural-born right to self-defense, and that's why I invited him on tonight. So welcome, COLION.
Thanks for having me, Tim. How's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. I've got a nice little list of exciting things we're going to talk about tonight. So okay. Before we dive in, here's what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to discuss self-reliance and preparedness. I know a lot of people right now are concerned about their Second Amendment rights, but not only that, but their own personal safety. And so that's going to be the first topic. Okay. Next topic we're going to be talking about is why is there this perception or reality that so many of our politicians want to take our guns away. And we're seeing this over and over in more and more news stories, and so we're going to talk about that. The next one, this topic is a little controversial, but it was mentioned over and over in the hundreds of questions that were submitted for this broadcast tonight, and that is, let's talk about martial law and what that really means. Now, I realize to some of you that may seem, holy cow, that's crazy, but trust me, I know that a lot of our viewers are thinking about it. Yeah. Next, we're going to be talking about home defense and personal defense recommendations. And so you and I are going to have a discussion on what are our own personal home defense and personal defense, weapon systems and what we like and what we don't like. And then we're going to talk about first-time gun owners, and then we're going to wrap things up with this whole concept of information overload. Now, if you're anything like me, I mean, I pretty much have Fox News on 24/7, as well as a bunch of other websites, and there's just almost too much information, and so we're going to talk about that as well. For those of you, now I realize that COLION has a gigantic following, and so I'm sure a lot of you guys are watching this right now thinking, who the heck is this Tim Schmidt? What's the USCCA all about? So the USCCA, we're all about education, training, and legal protection for responsible American gun owners. And so our hundreds, we have almost 400,000 members all across the country, and these are the most responsible gun owners that exist, and we're all about creating new responsible gun owners. Toward the end of this thing, I'm just going to plant a little seed here, but we're going to have a couple special offers, a special offer for current USCCA members who are watching this, as well as for those of you who have never even heard of the USCCA. We're going to give you a great opportunity to become a member and save a ton of money and really make your self-defense training go as fast as possible. So, with that being said, let's dive into this thing. And the first topic, COLION, is going to be self-reliance and preparedness. Let me just tee this up. So I personally believe that one of the core values of being an American is self-reliance. I mean, most people as Americans feel that, hey, I'm self-reliant. Now, the key word there is most, because unfortunately there are a bunch of people that are looking to the government to take care of them, but that's certainly not you or me. And so I would love to hear your perspective on self-reliance and how that impacts on what you're doing right now.
Well, for me, it stems from largely by the way I was raised. I was raised by a mother who kind of always taught me that, at the end of the day, like I grew up as a young kid. When I was younger, I wanted to be a basketball player. I had this idea that I was going to the NBA. And, and I worked my ass off. I really did. Like I did everything I could possibly do right, but nature wasn't in the cards for me. It's just not happening. So, and the whole time my mom always, she always tell me, she was like, basketball is fine, but focus on your education because they can take everything away from you, but they can't take away this. That's I grew up hearing that all the time. And what that taught me is that you've always need to position yourself in such a way that you can do something for yourself where you don't have to depend on somebody else to do it for you. It's great to have help. Take the help when you can get it for the most part, but to rely on it and to depend on it wholly is just a mistake. And that's just the way that I was raised. So for me, I never really looked to the idea of the government's going to protect me. Even when I was younger, I remember hearing about the concept of Social Security. And I was like, I don't have a lot of faith in that. So, and this is before I could even really have an idea about what my political stances were and so forth and so on. But in my mind, I was like, I don't really think that I'm going to depend on that. So a part of it too could just be just my natural personality is to be able to do for myself the best that I can. And so that kind of permeated into everything else as far as my political views, my personal dealings, so forth and so on. And anyone who knows me personally knows that I tend to be a little bit of a solitary creature, and I tend to depend on my abilities. But I'm not so arrogant or so dumb to think that there are people who know more about certain things than I would, and so I would defer to that expertise whenever necessary. But at the end of the day, it's to acquire information from that person in such a way that I can take it and utilize it myself. If I can't do it, I just absolutely can't do it for myself, then it's left to me to figure out a way to leverage someone or something else to do it. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to depending on myself for the most part. Within realistic parameters, of course.
Sure. I think that's a perfect embodiment of what being an American is doing whatever it takes to take care of yourself. My late father, always used to say to me, Tim, if it is to be, it's up to me. Meaning that don't rely on anyone else. If you want something, you got to go out there and do it. And those words from my dad, they resonate in my head all the time. So with respect to that self-reliance, so just today I read the Dallas police no longer respond to car break-ins, vandalism, or shoplifting. Can you imagine? I mean, so talk about self-reliance. Essentially what they're saying, and this is no knock on police officers, that's one of the toughest jobs that there is. I have lots of friends that are cops, and I have nothing but respect for them. But if you're living in Dallas, you better be able to protect yourself because the cops are busy doing other stuff.
Let me tell you something. I live in Dallas. So I know all too well about the things that go on in Dallas, and I live in the heart of Dallas. I live in the exact county where they said this, and let's just say I have a Ring doorbell app. So this is going to sound bad, but the level and amount of entertainment you can get just watching the different stories and the posts that people make on that app within your area is insane. But one thing that really does bring to light is how much crime actually happens in your area that you never see or hear about until you actively partake in looking to see what happens. And for me, when I heard them say that, it wasn't like, oh my God, what is wrong with the police? They don't care. That wasn't my mindset. That wasn't my mentality. I understood why they were doing it from a logistical standpoint. However, I kind of questioned why they would make a public statement about it. To me, left to me, I would say, okay, just whatever calls you got, just say, look, we're not sending anybody out here. We're going to direct you to a place where you can make a report and we'll get back to it. What I feared was the emboldening. I have a couple of friends who know people in the area who have been victims of the uptick in crimes in the area. People breaking into cars in broad daylight, so forth and so on. And then just reading a lot of stuff that I'm seeing. Like I read, had someone send me a post a couple days ago about a girl who was literally leaving a friend's house. I think it was around 8 p.m. and car rolls up, 3 guys hop out with guns and rob her of all of her stuff in an area in Dallas that is very affluent. So the idea that we can wholly depend on the police for our safety I think it's silly. I think it's a bit juvenile, and that's not a knock on the police. They are consistent of humans, so they're inherently limited. So they can only do so much, even at full force, even notwithstanding them dealing with a pandemic. They're still limited. Dallas is notoriously known for having a pretty stretched thin police department. So from that perspective, I heard it and I was like, huh, well, there we go. What else would I need to hear as a criminal to be more emboldened by the fact that, I can get away. Not only can I get away with doing this, what I'm going to assume is, well, they might not be telling the complete story. Maybe they can't read a lot of things. So I was already going to do it before the pandemic. So why not do it now when I'm more likely to get away with it? And so I'm just more worried about incentivizing other criminals to do things that they normally maybe wouldn't have done. And but withstanding that, I mean, I don't think to call the cops anyway, because for me, I look at any situation I may find myself in as how do I get myself out of this situation, and then I would call the cops after the situation's done if I'm in a position to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the powerful things about police forces is that, just like responsibly armed citizens, the police presence provides a powerful deterrent effect, right? I mean, that's why police officers wear uniforms. That's why they drive marked cars, because people can see them like, oh, okay, we're safe here. And the bad guys see them and they're like, oh, crap, the cops are here. And so to go out and say, oh, by the way, we're no longer going to be going after these criminals. I couldn't agree more with you about the emboldening of the criminals. So then let's layer on top of that the fact that now there's certain counties and certain states that are claiming that gun stores shouldn't be open. They're not. What's the word that they're looking for? They're non-essential businesses. I mean that's absolutely crazy.
To us, it is because we rely on it. That is the source. That is the source. Theoretically, that's the source of our protection, right? Because we go to gun stores to get guns. Yeah, you can get guns by other means as well, but by and large, that's how the vast majority of people get their firearms. And if we have a Second Amendment in this country, and we don't, the Second Amendment means nothing if we don't have actual access to the tool that the amendment protects us having. And they think they're slick and they think they're smart in a lot of ways. And they do things like create bullet taxes or try to ban certain bullets and things of that nature. It's like, here, you can have the car, but you don't get any gas, right? So for me, when I see that, all it does is it reinforces and reminds me, these politicians don't really largely care about the right for you. And some of it is nefarious. Some of it is just pure apathy, because they are essentially in an elite class. They have access to resources and things that the normal people don't have. So there's almost a sort of disconnect. And they look at it, it's like, who needs gun stores? And whatever, close them down, right? Or if you live in a particular state where inherently they are anti-gun, oh my God, this is a blessing. It's like, oh God, we've been looking for a way to do this for the longest time. Finally, shut it down, right? But I'm even thinking about it, because they don't care about your right to own a firearm. So to them, of course, it's not essential, because they don't care. They don't want you to have it in the first place. So they're not going to think the place where you go to get it is an essential business. So they'll shut it down without blinking an eye. But for us, I think it's incredibly messed up, because what we're talking about here is, you can't tell me we're dealing with a global pandemic, something we've never really dealt with before on a global scale, and then tell me that we're not really quite sure how we're going to deal with this. And then tell me we need you to shelter in place for an extended period of time. And then tell me, as a result of requiring you to shelter in place, we've pretty much shut down our economy. And then tell me there are a lot of people who are out of work and probably are not going to be able to pay their bills. What do you think is going to possibly happen? Like you can't tell me all of that and then say, oh, and by the way, you don't get to go to the store to go buy a gun to protect yourself in the event we do have a societal collapse. That's messed up.
and the police probably won't be responding anytime soon.
Exactly.
So let's layer this one more thing on top of that, or maybe kind of slide it in there, and that is that I bet you that of these, millions and millions of brand new gun owners, I think I read that over 5 million NICS checks or background checks happen in January and February, 5 million
Yep.
just in 2 months. I got to think that a ton of these people are people that probably in the past were anti-gun only because they never thought it through or never really thought through the whole concept of personal protection. But now they're in this awkward position of they just bought a gun, they know nothing about it, and I wonder how that's changing their perspective.
You know, I think, like, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of dumb people in the world. However, I think people are not so dumb as to understand the carnal nature of people, right? It's just some people need to be closer to it to really accept it, whereas others understand it inherently and thus prepare for the possibility of having to deal with it. And that's just a long, fancy way of saying sometimes you need to be close to get hit on the head before you realize, oh, damn, I need some protection. And so I think what a lot of people are seeing now, it's just they're just like, wait a minute, it's finally clicking. It's like, so they're watching their government pretty much kind of scramble to figure out how to deal with this pandemic, and then at the same time tell them that, like, you know, things may get a little weird. And then what do you expect these people to do? They're gonna go looking for a way to maintain their sense of safety, because it was largely dependent on something that is now showing vulnerability, right? So they feel like, well, I can't trust that. I thought you would do a better job than I could protecting myself, but guess what? I'm looking at a situation now, and then the beautiful thing, I guess you could say, we have this wide availability of information now. So we have all of the videos and all of the articles that have talked about societal collapse before and what happened. You can talk about the LA riots and other instances where people, the Katrinas and all of those things, where you can see that people were largely left to their own devices.
Yeah.
And so you take that and you couple that with this inherent insecurity of their dependence, the inability of their particular government to protect them. Any imbecile is going to think, I may not like it, but I think I need to get a gun. It honestly doesn't surprise me in the slightest bit. Now, I do find the hypocrisy quite comical, you know, and then there's a weird dichotomy within me that goes, oh man, I want to rip it to y'all so bad. We've been telling y'all this for so long, and now you're finally just doing it, right? But then at the same time, I think to myself, I say, well, you know, I was that guy at some point, right? I just lucked up that I fell into my firearm journey a lot when there wasn't a pandemic. So, so for me, it's, you know, I look at it and say, all right, so now that we've gotten past this point, now what do we do to teach them? Right. And the beautiful thing is, and I got a series of videos where I'm going to be coming out talking about those things. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get into some of the resources that you can get through USCCA as well, that does things in an acceptable way. How do we groom these people to then go from gun owner to advocate? Right. Because the more people we have protecting the rights, and so that's kind of my mindset right now.
Yeah, I honestly think this is an amazing opportunity for really the entire 2A community and for people like you and me. And here's why I think that, COLION. So last Thursday, I talked to my whole company about, hey guys, we're going virtual. You're working from home. We're going to make this happen. It's going to be challenging, but we can do it. We can get through this. And just not to pat my company on the back too much, but they've done a great job, and I'm so proud of everyone there.
It's awesome.
But I did say to him, I said, guys, you know, you may not believe this, but there's going to be a silver lining to what we're going through right now. There's going to be maybe even more than one. And I think an amazing silver lining for really the voice of freedom in our country is that all these folks have had their eyes opened to the fact that firearms ownership is not about duck hunting. It's not about deer hunting. No, it's about protecting your family and your loved ones. And to the point you just made, COLION, is that, yes, now we have a huge responsibility to help all these new gun owners, all these new people, to be responsible gun owners and understand, you know, how to handle their weapon, how to safely store their weapon, what to do before, during, and after a violent encounter. And trust me, when we take them down that path, then they become advocates because they realize this is actually great. This is something I never knew about. So
I mean, it's something that go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, it's firearm ownership is something that permeates the entirety of your life, whether you want it to or not, right? Because it's the most symbolic and physical representation of self-reliance and independence that you could possibly have. Notwithstanding maybe a car, but even then I beg to differ. So what that does is you start applying, and this is coming, I'm saying this because this is what happened to me. You start applying these aspects of what you're learning from the firearm standpoint, you apply them to other aspects of your life. You do change as a person. And I do believe you change for the better whenever you have the requisite knowledge. Whenever you have somebody guiding you down that road in the proper manner, I do think you change for the better as a person. It's just a lot of people just need people to kind of guide them and just gently nudge them in the right direction. And I think from there, what we end up doing is we start creating even better citizens. We start creating even more patriotic citizens. We start creating more people who have a love for the country, because when they get to the fundamental understanding of what the country was based on, forget the mistakes that a lot of the very human people who were part of the making of this country made. Take just the ideologies and the principles, the inherent purity of them. I said the same thing when I was on with Bill Maher, when he questioned me about the idea that as a black guy, at a point in this country's history, I wouldn't have been able to own a firearm. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But because of the purity of the language of the document that created this country, I stand before you now as a gun advocate. So it's like that's the inherent beauty of it. And then I think when the more people start to own firearms and then start to understand the principles behind them, because that's just as important as the ownership of the firearm, we start creating better citizens in this country. And I'm telling you what, you have a citizenry that is as armed as we are, who have the pride in the country that we live in. No one could touch us. No one.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm pretty sure you and I could talk about this topic for at least 4 to 5 hours straight. So let's just move on to the next one. Otherwise, our viewers are going to be like, hey, what's going on? Now, I know that this next topic to some may sound a little bit strange, but man, based on the hundreds of questions that came in, I bet you at least 50% of the questions people were worried about what happens if martial law is declared. And so when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I did a little research, and let me just tee this up. I'm going to read from Article 1, Section 9 of our U.S. Constitution. States the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. So from that perspective, I know you're a lawyer. I'm not even a lawyer. I'm no constitutional scholar, but I can't imagine the U.S. would ever be in a situation where we're just fighting a virus where martial law would have to be declared. The last time the U.S. declared martial law was when I believe it was Pearl Harbor. What are your thoughts on this? Is this crazy or what?
It is crazy. It's borderline scary to think about. But the crazy thing is this. Those words mean nothing without a physical backing, right? So when I think about martial law and them enacting martial law, and then what can we do to guard against something like that, I can think about a bunch of legal ways to do it. But within the moment, those legal avenues mean nothing, right, if it's enacted. But there is a caution that you're going to deliberately see by our leaders to actually enforce and implement martial law. And the reason for it is our Second Amendment. And the fact that we have so many people in this country with firearms, that is always going to be something they factor in and consider. And because of that, there's always going to be a caution with respect to our government in the things that they do. Trust me. Our current government has tried a bunch of nonsense with respect to undermining the Second Amendment, undermining other rights, and so forth and so on. But if you notice, they have to engage in a certain level of trickery. And the reason they have to do it, because they can't use brute force, because we have an armed population of people. And so they have to be cautious, because there's no point trying to overtake a group of people if you have to burn it down to do it. And so if you incite these people in the wrong manner, and then they collectively come together to resist you, you're going to have a problem on your hands that you did not want. And so I think that right there in and of itself, the Second Amendment provides that level of caution. Because a lot of people are like, well, what are you going to do with your little handguns against a tank? It's not about that. It's not about that. From the standpoint of Is it worth it? What are the opportunity costs of becoming a tyrannical government? What are they? Are we going to lose an entire country as a result of it because you had a group of people come together and fight back think about it. So they're always going to be cautious about the way they go about such levels of tyranny if they have the desire to do it because of the Second Amendment, because we are an armed population. Think about this now and say, I don't know, China. Think about how they handled the situation there, right? The government can do whatever they want, and they did, and they do, and they continue to do, because the people there don't have the rights that we have here. Our government has to be cautious. They have to. They have no choice. You have 300 million people running around with AR-15s and handguns, right? And I don't mean that in a flippant way in terms of, it's like, we're going to come after the government. But they understand that you cannot rile up the beast. And the way you rile up the beast is to infringe on our rights, whether it be the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, you name it. And so there's always going to be a caution there. It still very well could happen. And I think, and I think about it too, and it does kind of bother me a little bit considering the way things are going from what I'm seeing. So it's definitely something that's on my mind, but I am glad that they're always going to have to engage in a level of caution in terms of making that decision because of the way we are in this country. And I think that's a beautiful thing because it does essentially inherently keep our government in check. Maybe not perfectly, but enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said, COLION, and God help us if we ever allow this country to get to the point where we're no longer armed, because then they will do whatever they want. And case in point, like you said, China. So let's think about this though. So in light of the fact that yes, we're hopefully not going to be under martial law anytime soon, there are states and counties and parts of states that essentially are forcing gun shops to close. Now, one thing that I've learned from the study of history is that usually when a populace becomes unarmed, it's not something that happens overnight. It's like boiling a frog. You put that frog in cold water and you slowly turn that water up 1 degree at a time until that sucker's boiled. And so things like this, and it reminds me of the Benjamin Franklin quote. It's okay, that's all right. It reminds me of the Benjamin Franklin quote that those who are willing to give up any amount of essential freedom for even the smallest amount, or for the perception of safety, will get neither and deserve neither. And so if you're watching this right now, I beg you, please be aware of these tiny little infringements that happen slowly and little bit by bit, but pretty soon you wake up and you're like, holy crap, what happened to my natural born rights?
Yeah. And that's the game they've been playing, and that's the game that they do. And I call it the kicking me under the table dynamic. When you're a little kid in school and you have a bully and they're like kicking you underneath the table, no one sees it. And you're kind of dismissing it and dismissing it. And then finally you're like, stop. And everybody's looking at you like, wow, what's wrong with you? like, what's your problem? And it's like, he's kicking me under the table. And it's like, no, he's not. Like, he's not doing anything. He's just sitting there peacefully. And he's kicking you underneath the table again. You're like, And they're like, okay, this guy's crazy. That's what I feel like sometimes when I'm talking about these small encroachments and these little things that they try to do when I make these videos, and people are like, why are you always talking? Why is every little thing you have to fight against? And I'm like, because you don't understand the game that they're playing. They're just kicking us underneath the table. You don't see it, but we do because we're in it. And trust me, when you get in it, like a lot of these gun owners are now, now they're going to see the kicking or feel the kicking. And now hopefully we'll have a team of people saying, stop. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, man. All right. So earlier today, this afternoon, I spent a little time at the range sighting a few rifles in. And then I'm like, man, even though I wanted to spend all afternoon there, I had to get back to my house. And I went through some of the hundreds of questions that all of you viewers sent in. So I just want to read some of these questions and let's address them. There's some really, actually the first one I'm going to read, it doesn't really need an answer, but it's probably hands down the best question that came in. This is from Don B, location unknown. Dear COLION and Tim, we have illegal alien sanctuary cities, Second Amendment sanctuary cities, isn't it time to have First Amendment sanctuary cities and maybe Ninth Amendment sanctuary cities, 10th Amendment sanctuary cities, and even, Trump forbid, Constitution sanctuary cities? I love it.
That's awesome.
Don B, you get the best question award of the day. All right, let's get serious here. So, I mean, this obviously is a serious topic, and I hopefully you're watching this. You're not thinking that we're making light of it. If anything, I challenge or I try to inspire my team, my employees. Like, hey guys, you know what? There's nothing wrong with preparing, but fear is contagious, and so the best way to combat fear is to focus on gratitude and optimism. I'm not saying don't prepare. Yes, you should prepare. Do everything you can. But at the same time, you can limit your fear and anxiety by focusing on what you're grateful for. So with that being said, here's a question from, this is an anonymous question.
Okay.
Dear COLION and Tim, what are your self-defense rights if a group of 11 suspected renegades assemble on your porch and are pounding on your door demanding food and supplies? Ooh.
I know how I would handle it. I don't know. I'd probably sitting on my staircase with a rifle, and with the phone in my hand, calling the cops. I've done. I guess you can say I've been not in a situation like that, but I'm always of the mindset of I'm going to not necessarily retreat, but you're gonna have to really push me to that point where I'm like, I really have no other option but to engage you with lethal force. That is my personal stance. I'm not saying everybody needs to be the same way. That's just me. Like I was in a situation where I had a guy who, I don't know what happened. I pissed him off somehow. I don't know. I didn't do anything, but he decided that he was going to follow me. He was following me very aggressively, and he was really literally trying to catch up to me. And for me, what I did was I took my gun out and I sat on my lap, and I called the police on Bluetooth. And I'm like, look, I'm being followed by someone rather aggressively. They've made threatening gestures to me. I'm trying to evade. However, if I reach a point where I can't evade, I'm gonna have to do what's necessary to protect myself. They stayed on the phone. I tried to evade. I was able to evade, and that's what happened. In that situation, you're in your house. There's nowhere for you to go. So for me, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a firearm and then try to see if I could get ancillary people to come and basically diffuse the situation. But at a certain point, your back literally is against the wall. You're in your home, and I don't really play with my house. For me, that is my sanctuary. That's where I go for my peace. If I don't have that, I don't have anything. So I don't play with my house. So the moment I sense a threat with respect to my house, my mind automatically goes lethal. It just does. So for me, I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna hunker down in my house with my firearms, and I'm gonna wait. And as soon as that barrier is breached, it's gonna be a different type of party. I'm probably not gonna actively go out and engage them, but for me personally, that's how I would probably handle it. From a legal standpoint, depending on your state, depending on the country you're living in, for some people, I know here in Texas, they treat your house as your sanctuary. That's your domicile. So your castle is your castle, and you defend your castle accordingly. So the Texas laws, at least for me, function the same way that I coincide with my mentality with respect of how I go about protecting my home, because to me that is the most important thing. And in many ways, I kind of approach my car as the same way, because I never feel more vulnerable than when I'm in my car. So I look at those two as like, that's, you don't cross those barriers with me. My home is my home. If I don't have that, I have nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said. You're certainly in alignment with my thinking on that. The challenge, and you actually just brought it up, is that every state has very different laws in terms of when it's okay to use force, and so that's a challenge. And one of the things that we do to our members, or for our members at the USCCA, is we have a very, very deep resource that covers all the specific rules and regulations for responsible firearm ownership, as well as deployment, and when you can and can't shoot for all the different states. So I'm completely in agreement that, hey, if someone's on my porch banging down my doors, there's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is that, only 2 months ago, you and I would never even dream of that being a reality. But I mean, that could
Happens
happen.
fast, man.
It's scary.
Happens fast.
All right, here's another question from a viewer. This is from Doug in Pennsylvania. What steps should we take, or what steps should we be taking to make sure we have the resources to protect ourselves during this crisis? Colion, why don't you let me start on this one?
Please, go ahead.
So Doug, first of all, I have tremendous respect for the fact that you're thinking about, hey, I need to prepare for this crisis, and I need to be the first line of defense for my family. That's good. That's fantastic. Good for you. I would recommend that you have, make sure that you have at least 30 days of food that you can support the folks that live in your house. Make sure that you have self-defense equipment so that you can protect your house should you need to, and ultimately, I'm a firm believer in getting together with your neighbors and just that small local community and make sure that you guys are all on the same page with, hey, what cars should be coming in and coming out of our neighborhood. I mean, in general, it's pretty easy to know what your neighbors' cars are. But in this day and age, it's easy sometimes to not really know your neighbors. Well, now is the time to get to know them and make sure you're all on the same page and kind of being your neighborhood watch for everyone else and banding together to work on a good personal protection plan for you, your family, as well as the whole neighborhood. Anything to add to that, Colion?
Yeah, no, I think making it a point to know your neighbors is a good thing, because what I've realized, even in my neighborhood, I'm in a county that's blue. So there are a lot of people in my neighborhood who don't necessarily have the same ideological beliefs as me, but people tend to put their ideologies aside when it comes to their safety. So there are a lot of people in my neighborhood. There are people in my neighborhood who know that I have a lot of guns. They don't necessarily know who I am or what I do, but I've interacted with them. I've engaged with them, and they've come to me and asked me questions about it, even though I know ideologically we don't really see eye to eye. But they also understand that in our neighborhood, if something goes down, all we have are the people in our neighborhood. So they may not like guns, but they're perfectly okay with me and my guns, because if something were to happen, and since they know me and we've talked, and they're like, oh, he's not just this mysterious lunatic over here with a bunch of guns, they're perfectly fine with it. And so what it does, it allows me the opportunity to talk to them sometimes and, open the door a little bit more, and then maybe get them to the point where they are on my side of things ideologically. So I'm going to have to second everything you said, and then add that part. Just take the time to kind of get to know your immediate neighbors, because I think that's a big deal. And I think having people that close to you as allies is a good thing, because you're going to need them.
Amen. Amen. Well said. Here's another question, Colion. This is from
I think
Josh
I lost
P.
you.
Oh, Joe, am I still here?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Sorry
Okay,
about that. This is a question from Josh P. in Colorado.
Okay.
Colion and Tim, should firearms and ammunition sellers be considered essential infrastructure and remain open right now? I saw some news about gun stores saying that they should be treated as essential. So Josh, we already talked about this a little bit, but from my perspective, of course, gun stores should be essential. I would challenge the folks or the politicians that are saying that they shouldn't be essential with something like this. Do you think that firearm ownership for police officers is essential right now? Well, of course it is. So therefore, if it's essential for the people that protect everyone else, it should also be essential for the folks that are allowed to protect themselves, which is what free people are. Free people get to protect themselves. So Josh, I think we nailed that question for you. Here's one more question, and then let's move on to the next topic. This is from just initials DP. Dear Tim and Colion, I have family that are first-time gun owners because of the crisis. How can I get them informed and trained?
So, about that, I got a video coming. I can't think of a better example than the way that I got into firearms. I went to the range for the first time, knew nothing about firearms, and I shot a gun. From there, it was just an explosive exploratory phase into the firearms world, where I started just gorging on videos on YouTube. Really, it sounds oversimplistic, but I did. One of the people I was watching pretty regularly was yours truly, Tim. So, So
Awesome.
people underestimate how much of a reference, how much value the internet can give you. It is literally, it's information. That's what it is. The only thing about it is it's all over the place. So, you're going to have to actively seek out and search certain things. Now, one of the beautiful things, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here because I know that when I was coming up, I had to really piecemeal my information together. And we didn't have a lot of the resources online like we do now. But like with USCCA, it's literally an aggregate of all the things I kind of wish I knew growing up as a gun owner, and in one place. If I just had that, see, you were slacking, Tim. See, you hadn't had it ready at that time, so I'm blaming you.
Sorry, man.
So for me, I think utilizing those resources as far as the internet, actively seeking out things and exploring by way of video, by way of articles, joining organizations such as USCCA, joining other 2A advocate organizations as well, will go a long way in terms of really informing and teaching you about firearms. And then also take the knowledge that you already have and donate your time. Say, look, sit them down and say, look, I'm glad that you bought this firearm, but most importantly is I want to make sure that you're operating it responsibly and safely. And there's a lot of things that come with that. And I just want to kind of make sure that you know those things. And then impart the knowledge that you have and give it to them in a lot of ways. And trust me, they'll be incredibly thankful. And you got to remember, though they are now gun owners, they're still going to have a kind of preconceived notion. So if you can have someone who they're close to come in and break it down for them, right? That is a spark that will last for eons. And then they'll take that same knowledge and impart it onto someone else, and then so forth and so on. So it's like one big pyramid scheme of Second Amendment rights. So it's like multi-level marketing for 2A. Because then they'll go out and tell somebody, and they'll go out and teach somebody, and that person will go out and teach somebody, so forth and so on. So for me, I think taking your personal time, donating that, and then utilizing the resources that you have on the internet will go miles.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I can remember back in the day when I was first starting out USCCA and Delta Defense, and invariably I'd get contacted by, at the time it was just local newspapers, and a lot of the times the local newspapers, the writers, they were not friendly to the Second Amendment. And so I had a challenge to myself. I would always be like, hey, I'll do whatever interview you want me to do, but we're going to do it at the gun range, and I'm going to teach you how to shoot a gun. And I would give them like a great experience. The first, I would bring a .22 handgun. And then if they were comfortable with that, I'd let them shoot a 9mm and maybe a .45. And so I'd really try to make it a great experience. And I was surprised at how often these people who, they were fearful of guns. And because of that fear, they just didn't think anyone should have guns, which makes no sense. But I converted them. It was great.
Yeah. No, very rarely, I don't think at all, anytime I've ever taken anyone to the range who was anti, walked away the same level of anti, if at all, after the fact. So taking people to the range is incredibly important as well.
I agree. All right, COLION. So we got about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about, I know that quite a few of the viewers right now would love to hear some of our own personal defense and home defense recommendations. And let's try to do it in the light of kind of what we were talking about before, of what's in people. People are fearful of their homes being attacked and ransacked, and let's kind of talk about it from that perspective. So why don't you start?
Okay. So for me, when it comes to home defense, the most important thing is early alert. Early alert, early alert, early alert. Your guns mean nothing if you don't get to them until somebody's standing over you in your bed. It means nothing. So for me is making sure that you remember, one, to put your alarm system on. That is designed to alert you, as it may also be a way of, maybe a deterrent for someone trying to break in, but make sure that's always on. So for me, that's the important thing, is making sure I always have my alarm on. On top of that, now keep in mind, I'm a 36-year-old single black male with no kids. So my house is a proverbial gun resort, right? So I have guns everywhere. So, so my night, I have a gun sitting on my nightstand ready to go. And I also have a rifle there with a plate carrier. Me personally, I'm not going to actively search for you in my house. I'm not. I'm going to wait for you. If I hear someone's in my house, if I have the time, I'll don on a plate carrier, grab my rifle, and I'll sit and I'll wait for you. That's just me. If I don't have as much time to put on a plate carrier and I have to grab and go, I'll probably grab my handgun. However, and I run a suppressor on my rifle, and I run 300 blackout. I have a 300 blackout with a Leupold 1-4 with just a simple red dot. And I run suppressors because I don't want to blow my ears out, because I'm typically running an SBR anyway. So that's going to be incredibly loud, notwithstanding me having a can on it. So that's my kind of basic general rundown and setup. I do have a video about it that I did on YouTube if you want to go search it. It's like my nighttime nightstand setup, something like that. Just type in COLION NOIR nightstand, and that'll pull up. But for me, my go-to home defense is a handgun suppressed in 45 and a SBR rifle and suppressed in 300 blackout with supers, not subs.
Nice, nice. So you said the handgun is a suppressed 45.
Yes. Yeah, I go big. I go big boys when it comes to like home defense, because the longest distance in my house, I measured it out, is I want to say about 14 feet, I think. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 15 yards. Sorry, about 15 yards. So the way I see it is, I can afford to go big, slow-moving rock in that type of situation, because I'm not really shooting at extended distances. Now, outside of that, what rolls with me, like, everything goes to crap or whatever, I'm going to be running 5.56, probably in the SBR of some sort with some variable powered optic. But for home defense, I go big. So I go 300 blackout and I go 45 for the handgun.
Nice. So I love the recommendation on the early warning. That, to me, that makes so much sense. Certainly alarm systems are very valuable. Nowadays, there's so much cool technology, whether it's like the cameras you put in your house, the Nest or the Ring. Those are super valuable. Personally, my dogs have super solid ears, and they're another great early warning system. But yes, definitely the last thing you want to do is having some crook walking into your bedroom and you're still sleeping. As for specific recommendations on home defense and personal defense firearms, I mean, this is another one of those topics that I could literally talk about for hours and hours, and a lot of it would be my own subjective opinion. But I will say this. So I'm a firm believer in ammo caliber minimization. And so if you're gonna choose 9mm or 45 auto, or even of those two, then just stick with that for handguns. The last thing you want is to have 7 different handgun calibers and have to screw around with keeping stock of all those different calibers. Personally, I used to carry a 45 auto, but now I carry a 9mm because I went through some simulation training and I couldn't believe how fast I went through my ammunition. So I'm a big fan of 9mm. And as for home defense, I think the home defense shotgun is probably one of the best and safest tools for defending your home. Hopefully that was valuable to the person that asked that question. Let's see if we have time for one more question. Or no, that wasn't a question. That was our own recommendation. Sorry. So, okay, we got a few more minutes left. Let's talk about, we already talked about first-time gun owners and tips and recommendations. I know for a fact, COLION, that you've got tons of awesome videos on your site for first-time gun owners. We have the same thing at USCCA.com. There's tremendous amounts of free information. But let's hit this last topic, because I think this is something that affects all of us, and it goes into that cycle of fear that, if you're not careful, can get away from you. And let's talk about information overload. And I guess, what do you do to keep yourself sane when here we are kind of pretty much locked in our houses, and it's so easy to have that TV turned on and listen to Fox News or any news channel 24/7. What do you do?
So the funny thing is, I get a lot. I get two-way overload, to be honest, because because of what I do, the size of my following, I'm bombarded. I can't pick up this phone and not get bombarded with something about the 2A at every moment, just because someone's sending me a message, emails, comments, you name it. Sometimes you have to turn it off. Just turn it off, or actively. For me, it's cars, right? Like a lot, like I've been doing every once in a while. I'll do like a car review on my channel, and a lot of that, like, you know, some people are like, "Oh no, stick to guns." That's not for you. It's for me and my sanity, because it's so much. That's become my outlet to my outlet, right? Because I'll still go to the range and spend hours there, and that's like my getaway, and that's my outlet. But my outlet to my outlet are cars, and so I'll do something completely not related to the thing at hand that's trying to pull my focus, and I'll just deep sea dive into that, and then you'll be surprised how refreshed you feel coming back to what you're doing, and now you're energized and like, all right, let's go, right? Sometimes I just have to shut it off, because I'll hit a wall sometimes, and I'm just, you know what, screw it, I'm done. And, you know, when I take that break and just kind of do something else, right? Whether it's get in the car and drive, or jump on PlayStation, or anything, reading, whatever your outlet to outlet is, engage in that to a degree, because that allows your brain, that part of your brain, to recharge. And right now, everyone's kind of being hit the same way that I do with the 2A stuff, with everything that's going on now. You can't turn on a TV. I can't get on a website. I can't get into an app on my phone without being bombarded with the fact that there is a pandemic going on. And it's just like, whew, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and then you hear stories, and then you have these anecdotal stories, and you're like, oh man, it's killing everybody. And then it will overwhelm you, and then your mental will go to shit, essentially. And so you've got to kind of actively disconnect. I'm not saying you need to go full bore hippie and just throw your phone in the garbage and turn everything off and just sit in silence and meditate like you like in a Shaolin temple or something, but just do something different, something that you actually enjoy. Because what's the point otherwise? If we still can't do the things that we enjoy, just the little things. For me, I love waking up in the morning and just turning on random YouTube. Like I'm kind of a little loser geek, so I'll turn on, like, I'll watch a YouTube videos that have nothing to do with guns. It's just about history or like random engineering stuff. And these like video essays. I love those, and you'd be surprised how much joy they bring to me. Things like that. Just do something off the beaten path of what's bombarding you at the moment. And right now, this pandemic is bombarding all of us. So if you can find that escape, whether it is jumping on a YouTube and watching different videos, watching, you know, Netflixing and chilling, all of those things, you know, do it. Yeah. You need the escape from the escape. I know that's kind of the way I play it.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome advice, and I think it's so important that we remember that, you know, the news networks, they make money by selling fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so guess what? When you have that thing on all day long, it's just going to be this cycle. And like I mentioned before, you know, like fear is contagious, and so is optimism. You can do just the opposite. And I love what you do about, you know, hey, I'm unplugging. I am going to mess around with my cars. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So absolutely. So hey, let's take a few minutes. I want to talk a little bit about. I know that a lot of the folks that are watching this right now are your people. They're your viewers. And first of all, I'm honored to be able to speak with them. I really appreciate you being on the show today. And you know, I was looking at, you know, how many YouTube followers we have compared to you. And I'm like, wow, I kind of feel weak.
Nah. So, to be honest with you, for me, it is. I had this many followers, and then one day I looked up and I was like, what? So, yeah. Well,
I'll tell you what, that only means one thing, and that is that what you're providing is very valuable to them, and so you should be proud of that. But as for, you know, I know you've been a USCCA member for a while, and a lot of people, you know, they ask me, Tim, what does the USCCA do? And so I say to them, I said, well, imagine you're sitting in your house one night, you're laying in bed, and all of a sudden you hear the crash of the front door, and for some reason your alarm didn't go off, a dog didn't bark. You open that door, and now here you are face to face with someone breaking into your house and threatening your family. So I asked that question, and you know, usually they're like hanging on my every word.
Yeah.
And now you're forced to defend yourself, and you shoot this guy who's about to kill you. Now what do you do? And I say, well, that's what we do. The USCCA is here to, number one, teach you what to do beforehand, what to do during the attack, and ultimately what to do afterwards, and to make sure that you don't end up in jail for doing what any one of us would do, which is protect our families. And I mean, honestly, every time I tell that story, that's essentially the USCCA mission, and it gives me goosebumps because it's an amazing mission. It's a mission about saving and changing people's lives. And so I mentioned before at the very beginning of our talk here, COLION, that you asked me to put together a special offer for your viewers. And so I want to talk about that offer right now. So for all of you folks who, for some reason, are not a USCCA member yet, and if you own a gun for self-defense, I want you to really consider this. And I'm literally going to make this so easy for you because we're literally giving away over $500 worth of free training and this really cool Pelican case. I'm going to put it on the camera right now. So everyone that joins tonight is going to get this cool Pelican gun vault case. Put all your firearms and equipment in there. Oh, jeez. And then you'll also get this. You'll also get this USB. It actually looks like a bullet, but it's a USB drive. And this thing has over $500 of training that in the past, like a couple years ago, we used to sell this for over $500. It's all on there, and you'll get that for free. Some of this training includes home security and home defense, developing a personal protection plan, gun laws and how to select a firearm, the top 10 concealed carry mistakes and how to avoid them, gun range and gun shop etiquette. There's a whole video. This is all video training on this drive. It goes right into your computer. There's a whole series on what to do if you're attacked in your home, mass shootings, how to survive the worst case scenario, being protected in houses of worship. Even the first four volumes of Best of Concealed Carry magazine is on this as well. All you have to do is to go down to uscca.com, COLION NOIR, and there should be probably something on the video screen right here. Go to that.
Link there, yeah.
Yeah, go to that URL, and you can take advantage of that offer right now. That's courtesy of COLION. He said, "Hey Tim, if you want me to come on this show, you better give my viewers a good offer," and that's exactly what it is. Now, I also realize there's a bunch of USCCA people on here as well, and so for those of you who are already loyal USCCA members, thank you for being here. I hope you got some value out of this as well. And if you go to uscca.com/member offer, we're actually having discounts of up to 75% on some of our top e-learning courses. I'm talking about Concealed Carry and Home Defense Fundamentals e-learning, USCCA laser training, and Women's Handgun and Self-Defense Fundamentals. Up to 75% off on these for USCCA members only. So COLION, I got to tell you, first of all, it's great to get to know you better. I've been watching you for years, and I'm so impressed with.
How are you? That's the crazy thing. Like I literally, like when I first started out, like I was watching your Tactical Tim videos. I was watching them. I love them. So here we are. It's crazy how the world works.
That's super cool. That's really cool. It really is crazy how the world works. I know this topic. I know we had a lot of fun tonight, but at the same time, this is a very serious topic, and I really hope that we're able to offer some value to all the folks that are watching this. I will say one more thing. I've got this really good quote. So I was doing some research this afternoon after I read all the questions, and I found this quote from George Patton. "Do not take counsel of your fears." So General Patton, do not take counsel of your fears. And to me, what he meant by that is don't let your fears dictate your actions. Now, that doesn't mean don't prepare. That doesn't mean don't do what you're supposed to do so that you can defend your family. But it reminds you that fear is contagious and optimism is contagious as well. And it's important that all of us that are watching this right now remember that we're all leaders in our own lives. Some of you are leaders of your family. Some of you are leaders at work. Some of you are leaders in your church. And it's so important right now to really lean in to the ultimate test of being a leader, which is being a leader in times of hardship. And that is what we have right now, folks. And I know that you can do it. Just remember to focus on your gratitude and lean into that fear, and we're going to get through this. COLION, thanks again. Any other parting comments?
So I'm going to be starting a podcast here very soon. Would like for you to come and join me on the podcast whenever I get that set up, which will be pretty soon, considering we are relegated to our houses anyway. You guys look forward to that. The COLION NOIR podcast coming soon. And of course, if you so will, we're going to drop in some new merchandise. By the way, we're going to drop in some I Will Not Comply hats, as well as the Pew Life camo and black multicam hats. Other than that, I'll be pumping out the videos, get some other projects in work that I think the guys will really love. So that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, COLION. And for all of you watching, thanks for taking the time to spend with us tonight. And I wish nothing but safety and security for you and your family. And with that, I'll say from the USCCA, this is Tim Schmidt saying take care and stay safe.